Hey guys, it's me, Dr. Tomato, and it looks like I am finally doing videos again. It has been quite a while since I've done a normal review where I'm just sitting in front of the camera. Most of my videos lately have been behind the camera and then me just putting still images over it. But I do plan to do something a bit more new with my recent videos. I think what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to do more videos like this and videos where I focus mainly on cult classics or just weird old movies that no one ever really talks about much. I'm not saying that every review I do will be of that category, but I think most of the movies that I'm going to focus on will be those kinds of movies. And considering that I am a huge horror fan, expect lots and lots of horror reviews. But today is actually not a horror movie. I'm actually going to be talking about a classic film from the 70s that a lot of people seem to have forgotten ever existed. And that movie is A Boy and His Dog. Now I actually came across this movie when I was on the internet and I was just looking for old dog movies like Lassie and such. And while looking through those movies, I saw one that really caught my eye. It had a picture of a nuclear explosion, and if a nuclear explosion doesn't interest you, I don't know what will. And that's how I found out about A Boy and His Dog, and as soon as I knew it existed, I had to go buy it. Unfortunately, this movie sounds a lot better than it actually is. That does not mean that the movie is bad, it just means that if you're expecting to get a crazy movie out of the description of it, you're probably not going to get exactly the movie you wanted. Now this movie does have a really crazy plot to it. It's actually set after World War IV, after the entire world is now a wasteland due to nuclear explosions. And it stars a boy named Vic and his dog Blood, who are scavenging throughout the wasteland, and they also happen to be able to communicate telepathically. Now why they can communicate this way, no one really knows. The movie never really goes into too much detail as to why the boy and his dog share this bond. The relationship of the boy and the dog in this movie is really a give and take relationship. If the dog wants something, then the boy will give it to him, and in return, the dog will go and get what he wants for him. You get the feeling that these two aren't really close friends, but they've been together for a long time and they have to do whatever it takes to survive the world they're in. Now a lot of this movie actually relies around the fact that the boy wants to get laid, and something you should note is that this is a 70s grindhouse film, so it heavily exploits sex. It's kind of strange because on one hand I think the main focus is about the boy and his dog's relationship, but then you have this whole thing about sex in there that just feels like it belongs in a different movie, I guess. You think that that would make the movie a lot more funnier and entertaining, but there's actually some really awkward moments to come out of this idea. There's even a scene in this movie where the main character holds a girl at gunpoint and attempts to rape her, which is definitely an awful way to introduce a main protagonist, but at the same time this is based on a book, so I guess it's more of the book's fault than the movie's fault. I do not think any of the characters in this movie are likable. Even the dog is a bit of an ass. But then again, I do not believe that this is a movie about the characters. I don't think you're supposed to really like any of the characters. I think you're just supposed to be more fascinated by the setting of it. And the setting of this movie is very interesting and really cool. I believe it to be one of the main inspirations for movies like Mad Max, Road Warrior. You know, today we have so many post-apocalyptic movies, and back in the 70s there really weren't that many, so this was much more fascinating back then than it would be today. Now if you want to see how movies like Mad Max, Road Warrior, or the video games like Fallout were inspired, then A Boy and His Dog might be worth checking out. This movie actually feels like two separate films put together, the first hour being set in the wasteland area where everyone's scavenging and they have to trade stuff. The last half hour of the movie is completely different, as it's the boy and a girl go underground and they're not allowed to take the dog with them. And the underground is a completely different place where there's like a cult trying to recreate the feeling of life before the apocalypse. I think that that was a really interesting idea. It's definitely something that I like to learn about, like the different cults and stuff that develop after a post-apocalypse. But from the minute you see what the world is like and how the boy reacts in this area, you kind of already know what's going to happen. Now I don't think knowing what's going to happen is actually going to ruin a movie. I think lots of movies can benefit from it. I don't think it benefits this movie, but it definitely doesn't bother me. I think this is a movie that for its time was probably a lot more interesting than it is today. In the 70s, they took a lot of chances with a bunch of different grindhouse movies, and this is definitely just another one of those movies. I can't say that it's a very good movie, but it is something different and something that people would be interested in seeing. I think the overall theme of this movie is the connection that a boy and his dog have, and that there's no greater bond. Now, I feel like the message could have been a bit better portrayed. I mean, there's lots of dog movies that probably do a much better job at this, especially when you consider that the boy and his dog are fighting most of the movie. But at the end of the day, does anyone really care about a moral in a movie about a boy and his dog trying to survive the post-apocalypse? Overall, I think I would have to say that A Boy and His Dog is more of an interesting movie than a well-made one. There's lots of really neat things in it, like the idea of the world it exists in and that there's different cults and stuff. The telepathic communication between a boy and a dog is definitely enough to sell the movie on anyone. But I think anyone who watched this movie on the description alone is gonna leave the movie feeling empty. So overall, I think the people that I would recommend this to is anyone who enjoys old Grindhouse movies. I know I love old Grindhouse movies. I don't consider this to be a good movie at all, but it's definitely an interesting one that kept me captivated. But if you're someone who never watches like old movies from the 70s, or you don't care to, then definitely ignore this one. And I guess those are all my thoughts on A Boy and His Dog. Overall, it was alright. Thank you for watching, and if you liked this video, please be able to come back some other time when hopefully I'll have more reviews for different cult classics and forgotten movies. Hope to see you then. Bye.